in a previous video, I showed you how we cut acrylic on the xTool P2S and then printed it on my Eufy E1 UV Studio. There was a lot of questions within that video of, wait a minute, can I print and then cut instead of going the opposite direction? I'm going to show you how to do that today, and it's going to be on some of this corrugated plastic stuff because I'm going to make a really large USA sign for my front yard for the 4th of July. This stuff right here, if you are curious, I picked it up at the Home Depot. This right here is laser safe. I am using my xTool P2S for this project because it's my favorite laser and it's so easy to use. The first thing, however, that we have to do here is this right here gets sold in like gigantic sheets, right? This will not only fit into my xTool P2S because it's huge, it also will not fit onto this one right here. So I'm gonna have to cut this down to size. I'm gonna cut it to the size of my print bed, my large print bed for here, so that I can cut it over here without any issues, okay? So let's cut this down to size. Okay, so to start, what we have to do is cut these down to size. The size of the actual printer bed is 16 inches by 13 inches. These sheets right here is 36 by 24. I'm going to cut these in half. Actually, I have to think about it. I have to think smart about this because the stakes need to go here. So I need these to be 12 inches. 12 inches, 12 inches, 12 inches. Okay. Okay, so each one of the letters is going to be yay big, 12 by 16. Also, just wanted to point out, the corrugated signs have these little channels, right? That's where you put your metal stakes in so you can put it into the ground. So cutting your plastic is very important, like the orientation of cutting your plastic, because you want to make sure that if you're doing letters like me, or even like any type of signage, that you're going to be able to put the stakes in there and put it down, and it's not going to be off the side, because you wouldn't be able to put the stakes in this way because there's no channels. Okay, so now let's go load this up in the UV printer. All right, so we're going to take this off because obviously that's not going to fit. And what we need to do is pull out the UV printer from the wall, because we can open up that back hatch and load in this right here into that little square, lock it into place. Now what you want to do is load in your blank that you're going to be using. So I'm just going to load this nice and straight onto my flatbed printer. I'm going to utilize the ruler at the bottom to make sure I have it aligned nice and straight, okay? Pushing that on there so we're good to go. Okay, so I am going to be using this design right here today. Obviously, it's from Creative Fabrica, which is my favorite. So I'm just going to press download. Now, just like with my previous video that I showed you about using the laser with the Eufy printer, what I want to do is I'm going to set this up into Inkscape. Inkscape is a free design software that is available for anyone to use. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to find that downloaded folder that I just downloaded, and I am going to put in the one that I want to use, which is the distressed one. I want to do some distressing look to it. So I'm just going to drag that into the Inkscape software and just press OK. Now this particular design right here only has the printed version. I need some cut lines for my laser cutter, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into this trace bitmap, and I am going to bring this up to just below that, which is fine. Okay, then I'm going to press apply. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out, pressing the minus key, and I am going to Command D, which is duplicate. And I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to throw this off to the side just for right now. Because what I want to do now is I don't want this 1776. I only want these three things. So what I need to do is I'm going to take my cut lines, and I'm going to come over here to these little dots right here and zoom in, and I am going to select all these dots down at the bottom and just delete them. Now I'm going to press this arrow tool. For this particular design, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, both pieces, your lines and also the original thing. You're not going to be able to see it, but there is File, Edit, View, Layer, Object, Path, Text, Filters, Extensions, and Help. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into Object, Object, Clip, Set Clip. Now coming over here to this one, what I'm going to do is click on this, doing the same thing. I'm going to select my nodes tool, and I'm going to delete what I don't want, and then click on the arrow tool. Okay, so I actually want these to be 3 separate letters, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm going to do 3 different copies of this right here. Right now, we're not worried about the sizing. We're going to resize that here in a second. For the first one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my nodes, zoom in, and I'm going to delete my S and A. All right, when you have them all selected and deleted, just going back over to your arrow tool. Now for this one, what I'm going to do is the same thing, but this time I'm going to leave my S. So I'm going to select everything in my U, delete, and then I'm going to select everything on my A and delete. Going over into this one, I'm going to do the same thing with this one, only I'm going to select everything that's on the left, my U and MAS, and I'm going to select it and delete. Okay, now what I want to do is essentially the same steps that we did here over here. So I'm going to select this, Command D, which is duplicate, and I'm going to drag it down, doing the same thing, Command D, which is duplicate, dragging it down. I'm going to select my U, Shift on my keyboard, and then the my first one. And I am going to align these to the left and to the above. What I need to do now is make a Command D, which is duplicate on this one. I forgot we're going to need multiples of this. So Command D, Command D. All right, so now we have this. All right, so for this one, I'm going to select both, doing the same thing that we did earlier. We're going to go into Object, Clip, Set Clip. So now we only have the U. Let's go into the A, and we're going to select one, Shift on the keyboard, and then my other one. We're going to just align this to the top, send that to the back. Selecting both, we're going to Object, Clip, Set Clip. So now what I want to do is for my actual cutouts, I do want a little bit of breathing room on all 3 of these letters. First, what it's going to do is it's going to take away all the inside distressing that's in the cut lines, but then also I will have a little bit of capable of error if I don't align things properly when we go to cut. So I'm going to select all 3 of my cuts, and I'm going to do Command Shift and 0, which is going to make an offset. And I'm just going to go up just a couple times. So I'm going to keep pressing Command Shift 0. You will see that like my letters are beginning to look a little funny. That's okay. Now what I need to do is this one has like a whole bunch of random little nodes in here. Each one of these circles would end up being a cut line. So what I need to do is I need to come up here to Path, and I need to break it apart. All right, now when I do that, I'm going to be able to drag this over and see all those black speckles. We want to delete that. So now you're going to be left with a letter. Do you see how nice and clean and all black that is in there? That's perfect. So again, with this one, Command Shift K, which is releasing the path. Take this and bring it down. We are going to delete the spots. Okay, let's zoom out. And then what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to come up here. I'm going to put my blacks on top of my colors, select all 3 of my colors, and I'm going to arrange them to the back. And let's center these on top of each other. Okay, so if we zoom in, do you see how we have the black shadow? The black shadow is what's going to be cut out on my xTool P2S. The color, that's what we're going to print on the UV printer. Now at this point, what we need to do is resize these to the size that will fit onto the UV printer, okay? So we're going to come over here from millimeters into inches, and I'm going to make sure and lock these right now. Now, let's go with the largest thing right here. In height, we have a total of 16 inches in height and 13 inches in width. So I'm going to turn this over. Let's do like 15.5. And I have the width at 13 inches. I think that should be fine. Let's do 15.75. Okay. We'll do the same. We'll do this one. Height, 15.75. Still less than 13 inches in the width. So we're good there. And then this one right here, we want to do 15.75, just like the rest. So now we're good to go. I'm going to select my printed letters. I'm going to drag them down just so everything is all separated. for this part, what we're going to do is we're going to save these in 1, 2, 3, 4 different files. Okay, so we're going to start with the U. We're going to come over here into export, and I want to, you can save this as a PNG file, and we're going to do U. We're going to put it in the downloads folder, press save. Going over into the Eufy Studio, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in a new canvas. We can press the snapshot button on our UV printer because we already have it loaded up with our thing that we are going to cut on. You want to make sure that this is pulled out of the wall far enough. Yeah, let me start over because it did hit the wall, and we want to make sure that there it goes. Okay, now what we are going to do is find our downloaded thing, and we are just going to drag it into the Eufy Studio. All right, there is our finished thing. What we need to make sure and do is have this size to the size that we saved it as. So going back over into Inkscape, I'm going to change my inches over to millimeters, and this was 391, 183, 391, 183 in the height. So going back over into the Eufy Studio, we're going to readjust the height to the height that we saved our thing at. For whatever reason, the Eufy Studio always resizes my images, and so I always double check that. Generally, when we go over into the xTool software, there's never any type of resizing. All right, so my machine is still doing the auto measure and the snapshot, so we're going to let that load up. In the meantime, what you could do is set up your print settings. So just like in previous videos, I talk a lot about ink consumption, and if you wanted to, this is a white piece of material, so you could just do CMYK, but what I am going to do is I'm going to do white CMYK and the gloss varnish because I do want this to maintain some sort of like really coolness, and I'm going to put that gloss varnish. I also am going to be putting this outside, so I want to make sure that it's like completely UV resistant because the sun will try and eat my painting all the way up. All right, now what we want to do is make sure and have our image onto our piece of material. Should be perfect. Not going to worry too much about conserving on material here because I'm not going to have too much left over. All right, now all we want to do is we are going to set our material over into plastic, and we're going to do the standard print, making sure that we are on the white CMYK and gloss. Everything looks amazing. So now all we want to do is press print. Now what's happening is the Eufy Studio is pretty much airdropping my file over to the Eufy UV printer. Now this side is going to take a total of 5.34 milliliters of ink in order to get finished. Then what you want to do is just press the happy button on top of your machine. Now while we wait for everything to print on the Eufy Studio, the one thing that we could do while we wait is figure out our cut settings for our xTool P2S. So let me show you how we do that, okay? All right, so over here, what I'm going to do is I am going to take some of my scrap material. This is just the stuff that I had left over. I'm going to use this portion right here that has this, and I'm going to like do little test grids close to this. So next time when I go to cut this again, I'll have my settings right here with my material, okay? So I'm gonna make sure that my bed is cleaned out. I do a terrible job at making sure my bed is cleaned out from the last time I used it. And I'm just going to add in my piece of corrugated plastic. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to turn my machine on, and I'm gonna shut the lid. Okay, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come over here into xTool's creative space, and I'm gonna come over here into new project. Now, when I first load into the xTool creative space, and if you are connected via Bluetooth, it should automatically Bluetooth over, and then you'll get an automatic preview of what is inside your bed, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna aim to measure onto my piece of material. If we were to come over here into unknown material, and let's just do plastic, I don't think that they're gonna have any type of settings for this. I mean, we can search, but I don't believe that they have ever given us settings for corrugated plastic. So we're gonna have to figure out our own settings. Okay, so how we do that, and the easiest way to do that is we're gonna insert just a I would say insert a square, just because then you'll know like how great your corners are going to cut with your test material. And I am going to set this over to cut. Okay, I don't want to make this too large, so I'm going to make this at 0.25 inches. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into this box right here, and I'm going to do material test array. Now this is going to pop up, right? Let me see if I can zoom in. Nope, hold on. All right, so right here, you're going to see the speed is 10, 70, 130, 90, 250. And then your power is 10, 33, 55, 78, 100. You're going to have all these little squares that hopefully get cut out. This is where we're going to find our perfect cut setting, okay? You could, if you wanted to, change over like your max power or speed. You can start at the minimum things. You could also increase your columns if you wanted to, which is what I am going to do, because I don't want to have to hone in too much, so I'm going to do 10. So what ends up happening here is I'm going to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. You see this? And it's going to go up into these type of increments. So I'm going to know for a fact what is good cut settings, okay? So once I'm happy with what I have here, I'm just going to press done. I feel like the more options you get, the better anyway. So I'm just going to make sure and do a lot, okay? So we're going to come over here. We're just going to lay it onto here. You're going to see that we have all these things right here. That's okay. The other thing that I like is that your power, speed, and all that stuff, that's actually going to score. So you're going to know what the final project will end up like, what settings are going to be perfect, okay? Once we have this set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press process. This is going to take a total of 4 minutes to make, which is great. I'm just going to press start and press OK process. Now, when we're always testing brand new materials, what you want to do is make sure and watch your machine. Laser is fire, okay? I don't want you to ever like feel like you can let your guard down with the laser machine, because truly you don't want to, okay? If there's any type of fire, what you could do is there's a stop button at the side, and it will stop your machine, or just press the pause button, okay? But before we turn this on, if you haven't already, what you want to do is vent out of a window. I actually have an air filter, so I'm going to start that up first. Now what you're going to do is you're going to press the magic button on top of your laser. All right, let's see what good settings that we have here, okay? So when we bust it out, hold on. That thing is so loud. Okay, so when we bust it out, you're going to see that at the very top right here, the setting speed was really fast with not a lot of power. So obviously this is not going to be a good cut setting. We're going to need to come down somewhere right here where we have some squares that are cut out of here, okay? I think that at the very least, what would be a good cut setting would be 10 speed and 40 power, but we could even go all the way up to 100. Now the problem with going higher is you might have a little bit of like melting on your plastic, so you want to be careful and I would not suggest doing 10 speed and 100 power, just because you might melt your stuff. So we're going to focus, I'm probably going to go like 10 speed, 70 power as my cut point, okay? Now cut settings for all of your xTools, even if you have the xTool P2S like me, may require different settings than what I actually have. It's like the one hard thing about when people ask me like, oh, what settings did you use? Now I am going to be using the 70 power and 10 speed, but that may not guarantee that your machine is going to cut that exactly that same setting. So what I always suggest is start with a little test material grid just like this, or just do like a small little square in your corner using the same settings I have chosen. If it works for you, great, then do the entire thing. If it doesn't, then do this test grid, just so then you don't waste a whole lot of material, okay? Now essentially all we have to do is wait for the UV printer to get done printing, so then we can put it into the xTool to cut. So I'll be back. Okay, so print 1 is done. Let's open this up so I can show you. Turned out so good. Okay, before we move this over to the xTool, what I want to do now is set this up for my next print. Okay, so we are going to put this down onto the UV printer bed, just like what we did before. All right, now let's go back to the Eufy Make Studio and set this up to the letter. What I'm going to do is now go back over into this and I'm going to delete that. Although I am going to remember what settings I used, okay? Doing the same steps as what we did before, go back over into Inkscape. We are going to export the letter S, then going back into the Eufy Make Studio, I'm going to drag and drop the letter S into the Eufy Make Studio. Now what we should do is press the snapshot button right here, just so we get a live preview of what is inside my UV laser bed. Okay, then what I'm going to do is resize this just like what we did before. Put that where it should go. And we're going to keep it all the same settings: plastic, standard, white, CMYK. All right, as we wait for this to keep going, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my letter U and I'm going to put it inside my laser cutter. I'm going to put it over to the side, and I'm going to be using these right here. They're little tack down pieces that I put onto my material just so it stays in place and doesn't move around. Okay, we're going to shut the lid on the xTool P2S. This is still doing its thing. Going back into Inkscape, what I'm going to do is you know, initially I said I was going to save this all as one SVG file. I'm actually going to extract this as individual letters, just like I'm doing at the beginning for the printed ones, just so it makes things easier. So I'm gonna go into plain SVG, and this is U cut. Going over into the xTool Creative Space program, we're gonna press OK, and then I want to refresh the bed image. Okay, I'm gonna take my my test grid. I'm just gonna drag it over the side, and I'm going to drag and drop my U SVG cut file. No, display the original size. Okay, going over into the Eufy Make Studio, what we're going to do is we are going to start this. So this is on my sheet of material, which is perfect. I'm on the same print settings as before. I'm just going to press print. Now the Eufy Make Studio is going to send my file over to the printer, so I can just go back over into this design studio. I'm going to come over here and press cut. We did find that the perfect settings for me on this is going to be 10 speed and 70 power. So I'm going to change my power over to 70 and my speed to 10. I do want to make sure and do an aimed measure onto my material. This is key in order to get good crispy cuts. Okay. Then, now that we have a chime, I'm going to press the button at the top. This is going to start printing. Now, coming over here, what I need to do is obviously line up my cut lines to what's printed, okay? So I am going to rotate this 90 degrees, and let's just change this over to engrave, just so we can see a little bit of what we have going on here, all right? Okay, so that looks good to me. Let's go back over here to cut. Nope. That does not look good. All right, so let's just line this up. So with the xTool P2S, if you don't already have one, you kind of have this like fisheye lens, which you can kind of tell right here, it kind of like bows out. So what you could do is you could take like a close shot, and the close shot though only gives you this. Do you see this smaller rectangle? That's all it's going to give you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to click here because there seems to be like a lot of joining lines. Okay, so now if we zoom in, this right here is not a fisheye lens right here. You can tell it's fisheye right there, but not here. So you just want to make sure that this is lined up to your liking. And then for like everything else, we can just kind of gauge that. So this is why in the original video where I had went from cut and then aligning, because I felt like aligning it up in the Eufy Make was a lot easier than lining it up in the xTool program, because the xTool lens is fisheyed versus, you know, in the Eufy Make, it's not bowed at all. I'm going to trust the fact that this is going to work out. We are going to get, it's going to get real close to the bottom of this right here. That's all right. All right. We are set to cut. 70 power, 10 speed is what we've discussed. So we are going to press process. So I'm just going to press start. Over at the machine, what you want to do is make sure and turn your filter thing on, just like what I did earlier. Now what you want to do is press the magic button. All right, let's see what the final project looks like. For cut settings are good, which we have discovered they were good. We shouldn't have any issues with this popping right on out. Look at that. Here it is. Let me zoom out. Let me zoom out so I can show ya. Doesn't this turn out so cool? Can you imagine putting some little stakes in here and putting this out on my yard? So cool. I love it. I cannot wait to get the other stuff printed so I can show you the end results of this. Now, obviously, I sped things up a little bit and totally did not show you that I cut everything else and printed everything else, because honestly, it's the same steps over and over and over again. Once you see it once, you should be able to get this just fine. But here is the end results of my letters. I just got some wooden metal stakes over at the hardware store, put them in the bottom, and there we go. My USA sign. And now I have dreams of making signs for my house for every single holiday. Okay, so I have to know, if you watched my first video where I went from laser cutter to printer, what application do you or will you be doing in the future? Do you like going from laser to printer or printer to laser? Which is your favorite? All right, y'all, I sure hope I inspired you to create, and I'll see you on the next one.